Probably one of the most classified documents in the world is Putin's medical record. In the Kremlin, information about the real state of health of the dwarfish Führer is guarded like a sacred relic. And since it's such a big secret, it means Penny's well-being is really negatively excellent.
The bunker dweller, whom I last saw, by the way, in 2004, after that I haven't seen him on central channels or anywhere else, his facial expressions are really in bad shape. Why are things so bad? Because most likely there are some injections involved. It could just as well be Botox. I'm not going to make any claims, but his facial expressions are extremely passive, even when showing emotion.
Putin is obsessed with his health and dreams of immortality. This is the final stage of madness for all dictators. That's where all these Botox injections, bloodbaths made from deer antlers, and shamanic rituals in Altai come from. And then there are the endlessly long tables, and an even more endless quarantine in the bunker. At some point, COVID became an even greater enemy for the character of this fan song than Ukraine. The dying Putin clings to life by any means possible and tries to cheat death.
Participating in various sports, getting regular massages, having frequent medical checkups, and consistently taking tumor marker tests are all important parts of my ongoing health routine. He monitors himself, and a large staff of top-notch world-class specialists keeps a very close watch on his health.
Do you really believe that he's obsessed with his own longevity?
I know this, and I declare it as a fact with certainty.
Putin wants to live forever, and considering that he's a real ghoul, that's not surprising. The whole world spent a long time discussing his conversation with Xi Jinping, when the two old men with a straight face talked about immortality.
In the past, people rarely lived to be 70, but today, at 70, you're still a child. Thanks to biotechnology, it will be possible to constantly transplant organs so that people can live longer and longer up to immortality. According to forecasts, there is a chance to live up to 150 years in this century.
Putin's conversation with Chinese leader Xi Jinping about the possibility of longevity accidentally made it onto live Chinese television.
One could have dismissed it as just a casual chat between two drunks in a subway underpass. But in China, any mention of this conversation was quickly banned. Beijing demanded that Reuters remove the published video. This means the whole world heard something it was never supposed to hear. Let's be honest, when two dictators smirk as they discuss putting organ transplants on an assembly line to live forever, it sounds rather peculiar. So to speak, a brave new world.
It's truly frightening.
Especially amusing is the phrase that at 70, you're still a child. So it's no coincidence we nicknamed Putin the boy in his underwear.
The young boy.
Putin really does have something to worry about. He's not getting any younger and is already approaching Brezhnev's age. On top of everything, it's possible that the boy in his underwear is actually older than the official record states. According to former KGB officer Sergei Girnov, Putin is a couple of years older. Falsifying one's age was a common practice in the Soviet special services. So Putin is actually a couple of years closer to the underworld. They
make him a very special and unique medicine tailored to his genetic code, his DNA. These are very expensive medicines. We only do this in Israel. And in fact, this particular treatment has now become available to Putin again. So I don't know how capable Israeli medicine truly is of working miracles.
But aging is not the main problem for the geostrategist. According to American intelligence and independent investigators who constantly monitor the health of all dictators around the world, Putin has not one, but two types of cancer, pancreatic and thyroid cancer. How do you like that, Simonian?
This week I was unfortunately diagnosed with a truly terrible and very serious illness. Tomorrow I have surgery right here under this medal.
Oh my God. Nobody gives a damn.
Moreover, it is noted that Putin's cancer was already at a rather advanced stage. No one knows how successful the surgery was either. It was after this that rumors started to spread that the moth had died.
Any story about the head of an authoritarian regime being seriously ill or dead destabilizes the regime. And it's not about, say, the top tier of the Russian elite knowing. It's just that the second and third tiers are already starting to suspect that something is wrong. Something is clearly very wrong. So in reality, 20% of people in Russia don't doubt that Putin is no longer alive. At least 20%. That's a lot.
Besides that, the Führer suffers from Parkinson's disease. Apparently, that's why his legs often move involuntarily and his hand behaves unnaturally, as if it lives separately from his body.
The right side is mobile, meaning specifically his right arm and right leg, particularly the arm. He tends to drag it behind him as he moves. Or, for example, when he was in episode 23, we would have
We would also add that Putin shows all the symptoms of Tourette's syndrome. How else can you explain why he so frequently spouts so much aggressive nonsense?
So how did Ukraine come together anyway? Who actually created it?
And as a little extra, Putin most likely also has a serious spinal pathology. Putin has been suffering from this ailment for more than 10 years. This was revealed by Russian opera singer Maria Maksakova, who was forced to flee the regime to Ukraine. She learned about his illness from people who conducted medical examinations. Isn't it interesting? Putin wanted to break the backbone of Western democracy, but something went wrong.
That's it.
All the money Putin has stolen through his backbreaking work and all his influence are being thrown into longevity research. Over the past 5 years, the fading Putin has increased funding for aging and life extension projects eightfold. According to calculations by New Europe, the amount of support for such programs has grown from 21 million rubles to 172 million. In reality, it's likely that much more money is being allocated because such research is highly classified. At the moment, 43 projects related to aging have been launched. This already looks like an obsession. Putin is literally obsessed with the elixir of eternal life, and the sharp increase in funding suggests that Putin is starting to feel pressed for time. Apparently, his health is deteriorating. The clock is ticking and the mausoleum is getting closer. Putin is so obsessed with immortality that it has even determined the fate of his children. Putin's eldest daughter, Maria Vorontsova, is a doctor by training. And now, sit down and hold on tight to your chair. She defended her dissertation on the topic, Treatment of Children with Pituitary Dwarfism. Pituitary dwarfism is a form of dwarfism In addition, Vorontsova was the deputy chair of the Russian Society of Young Endocrinologists. Given Putin's pancreatic and thyroid cancers, it's obviously just a coincidence. And by a strange twist of fate, Vorontsova, whom Putin affectionately refers to as that woman, is his advisor on genetics. She is also on the board of directors of the mysterious company Nomiko, which is involved in innovative medicine. We wouldn't be surprised if she's still practicing alchemy and somewhere in the Kremlin tower, waiting for lightning to revive a mummy.
Lenin, the influential and visionary revolutionary leader. All.
Putin's family and entire entourage are focused on prolonging his worthless life. Apparently, the minimum plan is to live until the end of one's supposedly legal powers. Until 2036. Only Shoigu knows how many organs he will need to undergo during this time, and how long he will have to run around the tundra without reindeer antlers. But there is speculation that not all doubles will last that long. Especially Banquet. He doesn't take care of himself. Putin's desire to live forever is at odds with his nuclear threats. They say that everyone will die, but he will go to heaven. A man who spends trillions on his health doesn't want to die and is most afraid of death. That's why Iskander's in Kaliningrad and the crazed speeches by propagandists about destroying Paris and London shouldn't mislead the civilized world. Putin will do anything to stay alive. He will betray both his associates and all of Russia if necessary. So it is necessary to put maximum pressure on him. When the worm senses danger, he will immediately become willing to negotiate. Only when Putin ends up in prison for life for his crimes can his life be prolonged, so that he sits there for eternity. A true cult of personality has formed in Russia, on the most archaic and epic scale. For years, Putin has been molded into a golden calf, like a true totalitarian Führer, worshipped by the common folk from Kaliningrad to Kamchatka.
Congratulations, Vladimir Vladimirovich, my golden one, golden.
Vladimir Vladimirovich is doing a great job. This is how he sets an example for the West on how to get things done.
Propaganda presents Putin as the father of the nation, a prophet who leads the people out of the desert of the 1990s, and in general, as a living demigod, like Achilles. Except he has no weaknesses. Where would you be, you scoundrel, if Putin hadn't come to power in 2000? What kind of dump would you be living in right now? That's a rhetorical question. According to pro-government media and officials, nothing good awaits Russia without Putin. Putin is written about in school textbooks, painted on icons, and quoted in kindergartens. The slogan, "No Putin, no Russia," is the official ideology of the Russian Reich.
There is a clear understanding. No Putin, no Russia in the present day. That's why only consolidation around the president and support for his position can truly save us.
Thinking otherwise is forbidden. You immediately become an enemy of the people. Well, because not recognizing the greatness of the pale moth is tantamount to treason against the motherland. Well, that's one form of state violence. An idol cannot be ridiculous. If the leader becomes a laughingstock, the whole structure collapses. As soon as people start joking about the Führer in their kitchens, the cult of personality turns into a joke. That's exactly why the security forces in the swamps fiercely fight against memes and posts on social media. That's also why, in order to discredit the president of Ukraine, they call him a clown, as if to say he can't be taken seriously. But in recent years, it is Putin who has become the main laughingstock of the entire world, because he has always been that way, and it's getting harder and harder for propaganda to hide this dwarf walking joke from the public. If a clown's main attribute is a red nose on an elastic band, then for Putin it's his little suitcase. As everyone knows, there's not a red button in there at all, but a brown one. No. It's no secret that a whole colonel follows Putin around hauling a portable diaper supply depot. Putin is so paranoid that he's afraid Western and Ukrainian intelligence services might steal his excrement and create a genetic weapon against His Highness. That's why the great leader of the millennia-old superpower and supreme commander of the world's Second Army discreetly relieves himself in a briefcase in the corner like a drunk high school senior at graduation.
People often say, as the saying goes, or as many people like to mention,
there are legends among the people that the suitcase really does contain Putin's ultimate weapon. But it's not a nuclear button, it's something even scarier.
You have to admit, well,
It's hard to worship a leader who soils a suitcase out of fear. Stalin, like a true idol, boldly soiled his pants and died. Yet to this day, he's still respected by the ultra-patriots.
Our general secretary is lying in a puddle of some kind of mess.
yes, he got a little sick.
But Putin is just ridiculous. Even worse, he's pathetic. Propaganda, of course, tries to explain that the suitcase actually contains the nuclear arsenal control panel, that very red button that Putin will press if the red lines are crossed. But all the red lines have long since been crossed, and the button itself is a rather mythical thing. Only in a fevered, Z-brained mind, filled with the toxin of grandeur, does the belief exist that a single button can destroy the United States of America.
Of course! Of course! Of course!
That's not exactly how it works. Such briefcases are also held by the Minister of Defense and the Chief of the General Staff. And it's not a button, but a terminal for entering a code. To launch a missile, all three must enter the code and transmit the signal to the missile forces. And there, in the silo, soldiers are already sitting and preparing for the launch. And it's very important that the person who actually presses the nuclear trigger does so personally. And here, there might be some questions. Who would want to take responsibility for Armageddon on the orders of a walking meme? Putin is a laughingstock, so it's far from certain that such an order from him would actually be carried out on the ground.
That's possible. Moreover, it's not uncommon.
We were being disingenuous when we said that, unlike Achilles, Putin has no weak spots. He does. And the funniest thing is, it's his heels. It's not for nothing that Putin is also called the dwarf on stilts or the lady in high heels. The Führer is extremely self-conscious about his height. That's why Russian scientists work day and night to improve and disguise his heels. Ironically, what amuses people isn't the dictator's short stature, but his ridiculous attempts to hide it. It even gets to the point of absurdity. To avoid being found out, Putin wears special shoes. More precisely, they're not really shoes, it's just one big heel.
Internet users have noticed the Kremlin leader's footwear. In the published footage, it's clearly visible that Putin's shoes have hidden heels inside. The area around the heels is especially noticeable. This isn't the first time people have seen Putin wearing heeled shoes. Earlier, footage from one of Putin's press conferences was circulated online. In the photos and videos, the dictator appeared wearing oddly shaped shoes. As the Telegram channel Crimean Wind wrote at the time,
those legendary funeral shoes made an appearance.
As we can see in such traditional Bas shoes, Putin's feet take on very unnatural positions. Even an experienced orthopedist would feel sick looking at them. With his little heels, Putin is practically shouting to the whole world about his insecurity and complexes. This is a classic Napoleon complex. However, despite being the same height as Putin, the difference in the scale of their personalities is enormous. Even Napoleon's enemies loved and respected him, and in fact, especially his enemies. But Putin on stilts is a parody of a leader. Watching him fidget with his feet at memorial services is pure entertainment. The best comedic character of the year.
There was an episode at the end of the meeting between Putin and Trump when fake Putin was standing there, twitching his legs.
You could guess that he had some kind of device, starting at his foot and ending on the floor.
And this device is about 15 to 20 centimeters tall.
If Koshchei's death is in an egg, then Putin's death is in his sock. By the way, the Führer is embarrassed not only by his height, but also by his own face. The pale Chuchundra is afraid of aging, so his best friend is not Kim Jong-un, and not even Lukashenko, but His Majesty Botox. Perhaps there is so much of it in Putin's head already that it has taken over his brain and is running Russia. Basically, if Botox has replaced Putin's brain, that would explain his insane actions and behavior. It's hard to build a cult around a man in heels with syringes of Botox in his pockets who does his business in a suitcase behind a curtain. It's impossible. Despite the enormous security and propaganda apparatus, Putin remains a small and insignificant person. He is cowardly, insecure, and foolish. That's why he's laughable. Why did they even let him out of the hospital? Even the most fanatical patriots are gradually starting to realize, if they worship such a nobody, then what does that make them?
You're like kin to panarchy. The longer one person rules, the better. There's more opportunity to show oneself to the people and to develop the state. But you
are an imbecile. In Russia, there's a long tradition of reverence and submission to authority. But you can only keep the commoners in check if the leader commands respect and fear, or at least fear. But as soon as leaders become the subject of the first joke, it's time to start packing for the mausoleum. Remember Nicholas II, when people started making jokes about the debauchery of the Tsarina and about what the emperor had bought. The empire collapsed.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.